Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and I'm here with author, naturalist,
Troublemaker.
wildlife photographer, troublemaker, wildlife biologist, Stan Tekiela. We are at the Wild Bird Expo at Gold Crest Distributing, and this is their 30th anniversary.
Yeah,
I always
in
enjoy
Mexico,
in
Missouri.
Mexico, Missouri. I always enjoy your talks here, Stan, and I
Oh, thanks.
really enjoyed the bird trivia
Hmm.
session. So I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about some different cool, unique
Yeah,
bird
let's
facts.
let's do it.
All right. So you had a category called wild adaptations,
Yes.
and you were talking about wild turkeys. What's special about, as we're heading towards
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, what's special about wild turkeys?
So I wrote a book, bird trivia. So
Yep.
this is the what it's based on,
Mm-hmm.
what the talk was based on.
Uh-huh.
And I like to have fun with those types of things. So I like to have fun with different uh, ways of learning, because when you have fun learning, it sticks with you.
You remember.
Yeah, more.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked a little bit about turkeys, and I mentioned that turkeys are the only species of bird that can really take a entire acorn,
Right.
swallow it whole,
Mm-hmm.
and with their gizzard, which is it's called a proventriculus. This is like before the stomach. It's
Okay.
a muscular stomach that crushes the acorn.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then they swallow small pieces of stone or grit in order
Okay.
to help grind up and break that. So, and I always like you think, well, okay, that's kind of cool, but take an acorn, put it in your mouth, and try chewing on it.
I've tried accidentally stepping on them,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
more apt to roll as much
exactly.
as crush it. Yeah.
So you when you try something that like a bird does just normally,
Sure.
and you struggle with it, I think that gives you a little bit more sense of, oh, I guess this is special.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So, but turkeys are an interesting bird. Believe it or not, most of turkeys around the United States, especially in the eastern half of the country, were eliminated by the early 1900s. They
Okay.
were killed off for food,
Sure.
and they needed to be reintroduced.
Ah.
Now, I live in Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
and I was, for many years, I still lead a lot of birding trips, but they reintroduced turkeys into southeastern Minnesota in the mid 1980s.
Okay.
And by 1990, they were starting to really pop up everywhere. And I remember
Yeah.
leading a birding trip. I had a van full of people, and I'm driving along, and there was a flock of turkeys. It was the first wild turkeys we had seen. And I literally pulled the thing over on the side of the highway. We all jumped out with our binoculars and went, oh, turkeys!
Yeah.
Wow, how amazing that was.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And now, of course, they just go. By the way, for us in Minnesota, they always thought, well, they'll be introduced into the southeastern corner of the state. So Minnesota's a lot like Michigan, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they thought, well, the winters will inhibit them, and they won't be able to go very far. Well, it took less than 20 years, and they are across the entire state.
Mm-hmm.
So they started looking at these turkeys, and they said, what is the limiting factor for these turkeys? So is it temperature? Is it really cold? So they did some studies with turkeys, and they put them in big walk-in freezers. And
Okay.
as long as they were provided enough food and a reasonable amount of shelter,
Okay.
they could slowly lower the temperatures in there. And as long as the temperatures were lowered slowly over time, these birds could survive at minus 30 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
No problems
Yep.
for extended periods of time. We always thought that would probably be impossible for them. Turns out it's not. Turns out
Okay.
they can do just fine
Yeah.
with it. So they kept on looking, and the limiting factor really now is snow depth. So
Okay.
when you got areas of snow that is 3 or 4 feet or more
They can't
in the
get
winter, they can't get down
food.
to any kind of food source.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the limiting factor for turkeys.
That
So
makes
turkeys
sense.
are a very hardy bird, and they're doing very well. And as anybody would know, there's turkeys everywhere now.
Yes. Yeah. We have
Yeah.
a ton around Midland, Michigan, where we are. They play cleanup crew under my bird feeders.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Which is fun. When I started doing this back in the 70s, there was no turkeys. Even in the 80s, there was no turkeys.
That's
It
important
was-
context, I think, to
Yeah.
remember how we can change wildlife populations.
Yeah, I'm old enough to know and to witness all this stuff.
Right.
I remember all the introduction of all the big environmental laws that we have in 1973 to 74, 75, with the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, Endangered Species Act. All that stuff came about because we were in such a bad place we had the worst air quality, the worst water quality, the most animals endangered like that at that time. And so we've actually come back from that brink. A lot of things have come back, like turkeys, swans, trumpeter swans, for example.
Yes.
Bald eagles, loons, osprey. These are all birds that were almost eliminated at one point, and now are doing so much better than they are now. And our air quality is better than it was back in mid 1900s. Our water quality is better, all that stuff. So and the turkeys came right along with it, so it's kind of cool.
That is, that's great context. And another kind of rare species you and I were talking about, the red-headed woodpeckers. They have some cool adaptations, but also concerned about their population.
So with the red-headed woodpecker, they're an interesting thing. By the way, mid 1800s, John James Audubon said that the red-headed woodpecker was the most numerous woodpecker in North America. He called it semi-domesticated. He says they actually at times called it a pest. They called it a camp robber because it was the most common woodpecker in North America.
Wow.
Fast forward to this days here, and I got a picture. Sorry.
Just to give you
a
graphic of what a beautiful bird it is.
What it looks like. So this is the red-headed woodpecker. So 1850, the most common woodpecker we have in North America. By 1950, they're still doing okay, but between 1950 and 2020, we lose 95% of the population of these red-headed woodpeckers. They used to be found everywhere. 95, not 5%. 95% of the red-headed woodpecker population is gone, and which is, begs the question why.
Sure.
And everybody wants to know why. The answer is we don't know.
We don't know. Okay.
It's a species that is. It's an interesting species in that it's got a lot of different things going on. For example, it is not sexually dimorphic.
You're good.
That sounds naughty, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are we going to be censored?
No.
Yeah. Sexually dimorphic means that you cannot see the difference between the male and the female. So even if you had them in your hands, one, a male and a female, and you examined them, you couldn't see the difference between them. Most of all the other woodpeckers, you can see the differences between them. So how does that play into it? We don't really quite know why or how that plays into it, but it's kind of interesting. They're also considered a primary cavity nester, meaning that they dig their own cavity. They don't rely on another species to do it for it, like bluebirds, wrens, tree swallows. They rely on other birds to create those cavities for them. So, but anyhow, the red-headed woodpecker is just one of those, I think, super special birds. And if you see them or have them come to your feeder,
definitely.
You're very lucky.
I know, Michigan Natural Features Inventory is tracking them. So if you see a nesting pair, please report them so they can kind of understand the population.
Yeah. So they did some studies with this, and with my trivia book, we're having some fun with the impact of how much impact do they have? Because you got to ask yourself. I mean, if it was your job to wake up every morning, go out and bang holes in trees with your face,
that sounds painful.
You'd come up with some adaptations in which to not come home with brain damage every night.
Right.
So and they sustain such high impacts when they're pecking on wood, when they're excavating a cavity or breaking open a seed, things like that, that they actually exceed the amount of G-forces, their brain exceeds the amount of G-forces than, say, for example, astronauts do when taking off in a rocket to go into outer space.
Yeah, you said it was 3 for astronauts versus 1,000 for the red-headed woodpeckers.
Yeah. So
it's amazing.
One more case of a tiny little bird here covered with feathers who's sustaining amazing things more than people can too. So and just one more thing to endear me to them, because I just think that's absolutely amazing.
Sure.
Because I think we oftentimes look at these things a little fragile, whatever, and they're not. They're amazing is what they are.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And then you had another category, what's that bird called? And amazing anatomy. And you were talking about the bird that has the loudest call.
The bird with the loudest call is the sandhill crane.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have lots of those in Michigan too.
Yeah, and that's another good example of it, though. That bird was way down in population, and now it's really coming back. And all it took was for us to leave it alone, improve the environment a little bit, stop persecuting it, stop shooting it, things like that. And look what happened. It bounces back with it. So, but with the sandhill crane, bird vocalization is very different than mammalian or people vocalization. Okay. So for us, we have a voice box that sits at the top of our trachea. And so the air comes up the trachea and then goes through this voice box, which is like vibrating strings, if you will. And then that sound comes up to our mouth and we use our lips to formulate our words.
Right.
Well, birds are not like that. First and foremost, they have a syrinx. They don't have a voice box. And the syrinx is located at the bottom of their trachea. The two bronchia come up, and there's two syrinx there, so they can actually have two sounds made at the same time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Different sounds at the same time.
Yeah.
Then that sound is made, and then it travels up the trachea, and then comes out its mouth. And it doesn't need its mouth open or closed or use its lips because it doesn't have any to formulate anything. The sound is fully formed and it comes out. And so the sandhill crane is our loudest bird that can be heard up to 2 miles away.
You said their neck is kind of like a trumpet.
Yeah, the longer the trachea, the more amplification you get, and the more amplification you get, the louder it's going to be.
Yeah, and it was a pretty long distance. I'm trying to remember. It was like over
2.5 miles.
2.5 miles that can carry.
So it's all kind of fun in my bird trivia book. Just kind of, you know what I like about this too is that it's just North American birds. Because oftentimes you get trivia things. It's like
birds in
Africa
over the world,
and Asia and all these different places. So this is kind of nice when you have it in a North American local. You understand it. You've at least heard about the bird. You know. So.
Yeah. And then I guess just to wrap up, we were talking about funny bird behavior, and you were describing a lek and kind of where that word comes from and what the birds are doing.
So leks are they're usually historical, meaning that they're been used many generations.
Okay.
And it's typically in birds like the grouse.
Yep.
So sharp-tailed grouse, greater prairie chicken, sage grouse, where they every spring have a traditional spot in which they choose. It's usually within a couple hundred feet of where it normally is at every year. Low vegetation, and the males gather there to strut and to dance and to show off for the females. And then the females will come in, watch the dancing of the males, and choose a mate that they're going to go with. And these leks are pretty interesting. There's very high sight fidelity for sharptails and greater prairie chickens.
Right.
But with sage grouse, they tend to move their leks around.
They can be a little more flexible.
They can move from one day to the next day.
Oh,
they can move around. If they're disturbed here, they'll move over there and lek.
Sure.
But lekking is not restricted to these open land prairie birds.
Okay.
There are birds in the tropics like manakins. The cock of the rock also is one who has a branch, and that is a lek because they display on that branch.
Okay.
And they'll do their dancing on there too. There's many different species of birds that lek on a branch like that too, but it's still called a lek because it's a display area.
Right.
It's the dancing ground for the males to show off.
Right, and that you said that in Swedish, lek means to play.
Yes, it's a Swedish word, and it means to play, and that's where the birds all come to play.
Yeah.
So to speak. Wink, wink.
Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting to think about, you mentioned sight fidelity, and some birds, it's a traditional place year after year, where others are more adaptable and can change day to day. So when we're thinking about how we're managing or taking actions in different habitats, it's important to understand like how adaptable the bird species we might be impacting are.
And some of these birds adapt very well.
Right.
And fairly quickly, and others don't.
Yep.
And that's usually boils down to what type of, like, for example, birds that are very specific feeders. They feed on a very specific food, like, for example, snail kites. They only feed on snails. Well, they do feed on turtles, too, but snails are their main diet. So if snails are gone from an area, they have to move to another area.
Sure.
But if all the snails are gone, then it's a real problem for them. These specialized feeders are at the highest or most risk for habitat loss and for extinction because of that. So depending on how adaptable they are and how much of a specialist or a generalist are they, that's the big differences between them.
Okay. Stan, thank you so much for your time.
This was great.
All of the interesting information, and we hope this helps you build just a greater appreciation for our birds and all the neat things about them, and think about kind of how our actions can impact them for better or worse. Take care and have a good week.